Chair recognizes Mr. Busey to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our bill author, Chairman Buckley, has said that this bill is universal, and at least based on income, that would be correct. Millionaires and billionaires will be able to get a government handout to send their kids to a private schools that they already attend. But I don't think we should give billionaires this voucher. I think we should save it. If we're going to pass this legislation, we should save it for those that most need. My friend Chairman Frank, as has been highlighted now and some back and forth, said earlier to Representative Turner that rich families already have more access. They already have it. On social media earlier, our colleague Hillary Hicklin said, "Today we set the captives free. School choice is coming to Texas. Hallelujah." And Governor Abbott has said many times, including recently at a rally in San Antonio, these are parents living paycheck to paycheck. So Representative Hicklin and Frank, I think I have an amendment for you. With my amendment, we can ensure that none of the money, the $1 billion, goes to the rich that already have the access, but instead to the parents, as Governor Abbott said, that are living paycheck to paycheck. So members, like many others, this amendment is simple. It ensures that individuals making more than 500% of the federal poverty level are not eligible for this voucher program. Let's be honest. The governor has claimed, as we said, that this bill is about helping low-income families access a better education. But we know that that is potentially not what will happen. Not in Texas, not under this bill. We've also seen in many other states that that is not what has happened when they have passed voucher bills. Across the country, in places like Arizona, Arkansas, and Florida, the vast majority of voucher users, up to 95% in some states, Arkansas in this case, have already attended a private school and not attended a public school before taking advantage. That means they are already able to pay for that private school education. This isn't about helping kids in struggling schools unless we put my amendment on. It's about giving families who already send their kids to private school a taxpayer-funded discount. That's not school choice. That's a government handout for the wealthy. If the governor is serious about helping low-income Texans, then this amendment should be an easy yes for each and every one of us, because no one making six figures needs help covering private school tuition. We've heard over and over the average of $9,500. Well, we don't need the rich to be able to cover $9,500. Members, Texans want strong public schools, not tax giveaways to rich Texans. This amendment protects taxpayer dollars, keeps the program focused on the families the governor is claiming to care about, and helps prevent the kind of abuse we've seen in every other state that has gone down this road. So let's make this bill what it pretends to be. And we heard a back and forth a minute ago that said, well, we got to fill the other buckets first. Well, let's make sure that we never fill the rich elite bucket with this voucher, or ESA, as some have called it, program. I don't mean to offend. If you want to call it an ESA, call it that. Vote with me on this amendment. Let's live up to the potential of this bill. Let's make sure that the rich aren't taken advantage with this government handout. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Anchia, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield for a few questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Busey. The bill before us, which has been much ballyhooed as being a way to uplift people of low means, families of low means who are stuck in struggling schools, in fact, will be a public subsidy of the tax dollars that our constituents pay in order to subsidize wealthy families in private schools. Is that not right?
It absolutely has the potential to do that.
And let's talk about that potential, because as you pointed out, there are a number of different buckets that need to be filled before you get to this uncapped potential of billionaires being eligible for this subsidy. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, there's one thing that's curious about the bill that has not been discussed, that those buckets go away after the first 2 years of the bill, do they not?
I'll take your word for it.
So the buckets, in fact, do not stay in place in perpetuity of the program. They melt away so that the caps that are put in place do not persist beyond the first few years of the program. Is that correct?
Well, it is. And Representative, with that being stated, I'll tell you what's more important than ever that we put this amendment on, because if that was to happen, then we would see more rich and more elite get in and take advantage of this program down the road, and we would not be serving the kids that are truly in need. So we need to make sure that with this amendment, that we're not living in the possibilities of the rich getting it or not getting it. Let's just say they don't get it. Let's put this on. You know, one of my friends is rich, and you know, he's a wealthy
Thank you.
individual. Well,
How do you know?
maybe the guy at the bag mic as well. One of my friends, he was talking to me the other day, and he said, I could get behind this if it wasn't going to people like me, going to rich people like him, if we weren't giving this away to the elite, if it was truly to help those in need. But there's potential here. I know that there are some buckets that will do that, but there's potential here for it to go to others that do not need this, that already have this kind of access.
So when, and apparently there's some disagreement about whether the caps on the buckets melt away or not. I know that was in the underlying bill, might have been fixed in the perfecting amendment. When we do fill up the buckets and you have this final bucket, what is the cap that you're seeking to place?
So this is saying no one over 500% of the federal poverty level can take advantage of taxpayer handout voucher.
And what does that look like? What is 500% of FPL?
$160,000 roughly for a family. So we're talking about a family that brings home $160,000 up to that line. If you're above that line, we're saying you have this choice already. If you want to go to a private school, if you want to go to a public charter school, heck, if you want to move to a different school district, you probably have the means to do it. So we're asking all of us here to say, look, let's take the governor at his word that this is helping people live in paycheck to paycheck. Let's take our colleagues at their word that they want to help the middle class and lower economic status class get this option. Let's just guarantee that top bucket of the rich elite doesn't get to take advantage of this. They don't need it. They don't need it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that agree with that. So let's just ensure that the middle class that this is designed to help serve, there's more money to go to them. It's $1 billion. It's not universal economically. So let's make sure that the dollars that we are choosing to appropriate to this go to those that are more in need. With this amendment, we can do that.
Thanks, Mr. Busey.
Thank you, Representative.
Mr. Frank, for what purpose?
Does the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentleman yield.
Yes, I do.
Gentleman yields.
Yeah, first of all, I think most of us in here want universal, not most of us, but I know I do. I want every parent to have the choice. But I just wanted to clarify something in the back and forth because it was on Dr. Buckley's perfecting amendment that 20% cap doesn't melt away as has been represented. That 20% cap lasts in perpetuity. And the reason that's important, are you aware that 20% doesn't go away? The 20% cap on the upper income.
Yeah, Representative Frank, I totally take your word for it. As you know, the wrong perfected amendment was filed. Some of us didn't get to see it till right before the vote, so we had seconds to really review it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting there was anything wrong. I just wanted to make sure that you
I
were
can
aware.
understand why there was confusion among our colleagues on that. But let me say to that point, so I totally take your word. I've heard that the cap is there now in perpetuity. But what I'm concerned about, and I also heard your last dialogue in the last amendment, that you got to fill the other buckets. I take you at that word as well. I'm concerned about why do we ever want to get to this bucket?
Yeah.
Why do we want to do that? We've got more people that have more need that we could serve with this. And let's if we're going to pass this bill, which I'm opposed to because I think it will hurt our other school options in the long run. But if we are going to pass this bill, let's truly serve the Texas families with need with this bill. So let's just block that higher bucket altogether. I hope you'll join me in that.
Just as we serve all kids into current public schools, including the wealthy ones, I think this is an opportunity for us to give more options to all parents, and very importantly, to limit it and to prioritize those who need it most. And
look, I appreciate it, and I'm not saying get rid of all the prioritization buckets. I'm talking about those over 500% of the federal poverty level.
Gotcha.
Families making $160,000. And I agree with you. You brought up our public schools. Look, we've got
I told
public
them one
schools to serve
question.
everyone. We all. All right, Representative. Thank you, Chairman Frank.
Mr. Morales, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, does the gentleman yield for questions?
Yes,
Gentleman
I do.
yield. Gentleman yields.
So, Mr. Busey,
Yes,
you're
sir.
asking this legislative body to address the
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, motion to
Mr.
extend.
Morales, for what purpose?
Motion to extend against the objection of the one,
No,
Mr. Hayes behind me.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there objection?
No.
Chair hears none. Gentleman's time is extended.
Mr. Busey, quickly.
Yes, sir.
Your amendment is actually asking this legislative body to address the issue of, on the right, you're asking us to make a decision between millionaires and billionaires, and on the left, with the middle class, and stand behind with the middle class and those low-income earners. Is that correct?
That is correct. Look,
And- go ahead.
$160,000. If you make under that, then you would still be eligible if you put this amendment on. We're saying those that make over 500% of the federal poverty level, let's not extend this right now. Let's not do that. Let's take them out. Let's not get to that bucket. Let's serve those that truly need it, which we have been told over and over and over that that's what the people want from this governor. Let's meet them. The governor said we can't go to a vote, fine. People listen to him there. Let's listen to his intent of this bill, which is to serve
Right.
people living paycheck to paycheck.
And by the last count and that I recall, were there more millionaires and billionaires in the state of Texas, or more low-income and middle-class people in the state of Texas?
I think there's a lot more hardworking, low-income, and middle-class Texans that would probably, if people are going to take advantage of this, I think this body would rather serve them than serve the rich elite.
And so if we have to decide, and each one of us has approximately 200,000 people, what do you think is the vast majority of those that we represent? Low income and middle class, or we represent millionaires and billionaires?
I think the vast majority is low income and middle class, and I think we're just saying let's not make this a feeding trough for the rich. Let's take care of the low income and middle class families with this, and let's just guarantee that just in case we were to get to that top bucket, we don't spend taxpayer dollars on millionaires and billionaires getting a subsidy, a government handout to pay for their privatization.
And last question, your amendment would not prohibit and would not exclude low income or moderate income families.
Absolutely not.
Now,
This-
I understand the data shows that it'll allow participants for families that are making under $160,000 for a family of four. Is that your understanding of what your amendment would do?
That's correct.
And also, $188,000 or lower for a family of five, you would be able to qualify. But if you make more than that, then yeah, there is this exclusion.
Correct. It's not a hard number. We're using 160,000 as the threshold to understand what a family of four is. It's 500% of the federal poverty level. I want everyone in here to think about what 500% of the federal poverty level is. That's what we're talking about. We're saying if you make more than that, then maybe you don't need big government to roll in and pay for your kids' private
Last
school
question, in
education.
comparison to recently, just so that we can have, for those listening at home, the comparison between what your amendment would do with the 500% restriction and what we did for Medicaid. What is that threshold on Medicaid?
I mean, I think I have that number here. It's staggeringly different. When we look at what we do for Medicaid, family of four, it's, let me find the number here, unless you have it in front of you, Representative, but it is shocking.
I understand that it's 42,768.
That's correct. And so we're not even using the same numbers. We had a healthcare fight here last week, Medicaid expansion, that everybody said, we can't do that. That's too much money for people making too much money.
For people making
But we want to give a
46,000.
voucher to people making dramatically more than that.
Okay.
Dramatically more. We won't give government-supported health care that you're already taxed on and paying for, but we'll give you a voucher. That's what, if we don't put this amendment on, that's what we're saying here.
And if we end up, again, the possibility of having to address the issue of motioning to table this amendment, which I'm not proposing for, we would be in the same boat. We would be choosing millionaires and billionaires that we voted in favor of motioning to table instead of the low-income and middle-class Texans.
Absolutely right. I can't imagine anyone here that is representing the 200,000 constituents that they are here to serve would want this voucher to go to the rich elite in their districts, but instead to go to the middle class and low-income working families that they serve. So I think I would expect that we would take this as an up and down vote, not a motion to table, and that we would be able to pass this unanimously, accepted by the author, to ensure that the intent of the governor to serve families living paycheck to paycheck is truly served by this bill. We can all do that, friends and colleagues. With this amendment, we can live up to the words of the governor and make sure that we're ensuring that only the families living paycheck to paycheck are struggling even more are the ones that get to take advantage of this. Let's serve our constituents with this. Let's not serve the rich elite with this.
I appreciate your input. I appreciate your hard work on this amendment. I know that you have visited House District 74. I know that you have a place out there also. I know who you know I represent, and that you're standing up with this amendment for those low-income and middle-class folks that I represent in House District 74, and I applaud you for those efforts.
Sir,
Mr.
you,
Busey. Thank
you have the second prettiest district in Texas.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hayes, for what purpose?
Will the member yield to questions?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Representative Busey. My first question is, how many billionaires are there in Texas?
Why don't you tell me, sir?
I'm asking you. You're so very concerned about the number of billionaires. I'm asking how many billionaires are there in Texas?
I think Texas has more than any other state, but I will say this. If one
You don't know.
billionaire takes advantage of this program, that's one way too many, sir. Let me ask you, would you support a billionaire taking advantage of this program? Elon Musk, he wants to come take advantage of this program. Do you support that?
I think you've yielded to my question, so you don't know the answer to the first one. My second question is, how many children
I can tell
do
you
the
this. Let me
billionaires
answer your
of
first
Texas
question.
have?
Let me tell you this. There's more than one in Texas. I know that. So that's the answer to your question. And if that more than one takes advantage of this program, I think that's one too many, sir. And I hope you would agree with me that if one billionaire, which I think you understand there's at least one billionaire in the state of Texas, if they take advantage of this program, don't you think that's one too many?
My question is, how many billionaires have children age K through 12 in Texas?
Sir, I mean, I know Elon has double digits, but I don't usually go around paying attention to the personal lives of anyone, especially the amount of kids that billionaires in the state of Texas have.
Right.
If you'd like to share some information in the form of a question, I'd be happy to respond to that.
Okay. So the question is, how many kids age K through 12 are children of Texas billionaires?
I think it would be a little weird if I knew the answer to that question,
Okay.
sir.
In regard, can you tell us how many millionaires there are in the state of
A
Texas?
lot. A ton.
Can you tell me how many children the millionaires of Texas have that are aged K through
Thousands
12?
and thousands, I would guess.
You cannot give me a number.
I know, let me ask you, sir. Do you think
My question is,
millionaires should take advantage of this voucher program? Do you
Can you
believe that that should
provide-
happen?
The number.
Can I provide what number? How many millions are? There's a lot. My answer to that is a lot.
Yeah, the number of children that are aged
A lot
K
of
through
millionaires
12
have children.
that are K through 12.
Let's say there's
in the
more than
state of
1,000,
Texas.
sir. Do you think they should be able to take advantage of this? Let's say there's more than 1,000. I think that, would you agree that's a safe guess? Do you think they should be able to take advantage of this?
I think that you're very concerned with the billionaires.
I'm actually
children.
concerned, sir.
Let me
if you-
finish my question,
If you would read,
sir.
well, I'm responding to you.
Members, please do
I'm
not.
responding to you because you said I'm concerned.
Please do not talk over each other.
So let me respond to your question about what am I concerned about. I am concerned with people that make, as the amendment says, over 500% of the federal poverty level taking advantage of this voucher program. I want to make sure the people making below 500% of the federal poverty level have more access to this instead of taking that access away.
I take it from your failure to answer the question. You don't know how many billionaires there are. You don't know how many kids they have. You don't know how many kids are in grades K through 12. Would
So
that be fair to say?
I'm not sure your questions are relevant to this amendment or understanding the point of the rich elite having a handout from the state government to send their kids to a private school.
I want to thank the member for not answering my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome, Representative.
Ms. Troxclair, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Absolutely.
All right, so you just said that the purpose of this amendment,
The gentleman is almost out of time. Gentleman yields.
all right.
Yes.
You just said you would like to have more poor kids to have access to this program, and that is the purpose of your amendment. Is that correct?
What the purpose of my amendment is to ensure that people that make 500% of the federal poverty level do not get to take advantage of an already bad bill. So I'm trying to say that with a bad bill in front of us, let's make it a little less bad by making sure that, as the governor said, that there are people living paycheck to paycheck. Let's make sure that this actually goes to serve them. And so if you have an amendment that's going to deal with something else, I'll take that up on its merits. But what this amendment does is it says that the rich elite should not get to take advantage of this, but instead it should go to people that don't already have access to this, as the governor has asked for the intent of this bill to be.
The gentleman's time has expired. Chair recognizes Dr. Buckley in opposition to the amendment.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Weiner, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I do.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chairman Buckley. So, Chairman, are you aware that Arizona legislation providing a voucher program used a similar priority system to what's proposed in your underlying bill?
Yeah, I'm aware of a program. I don't know the details of their program, though.
Well, I'll posit to you, it used a very similar priority system, the same priority system Representative Busey's trying to address with his amendment. Are you aware that there have been some deep dive studies by the Brookings Institution and others into the income levels that ended up using vouchers under Arizona's priority system?
I'm sure there are. Most states do have collect that data, so they know who's in the program.
Yeah, so some of the in-depth breakdown found that 52% of Arizona voucher recipients are from zip codes in the top quarter of household incomes. Were you aware of that?
I was not. I don't know what that means in Arizona, what that number is, how much. I don't know that income level.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I would presume that's probably over 500% of the poverty level if you're in the top 25%. Were you aware that over 75% of vouchers go to families in zip codes with median incomes above Arizona's average?
I'm not advised to their particular prioritization.
Okay. Are you aware that only 5% of voucher recipients in Arizona came from zip codes in the lowest quartile, the lowest 25% of median incomes?
No, Representative Weiner, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. And so I'll posit this too, though I'm anticipating your answer. Are you aware that that means that in the wealthiest zip codes in Arizona, students were 10 times more likely to use their voucher program using the same system of prioritization you've proposed here? Yeah. Wealthy zip codes, 10 times as likely to use that voucher program as those in low-income zip codes.
But I'm not aware of that, but I'm aware that this bill caps the highest earners at 20%. Leaving the other 80% for middle-class families to access this program.
Representative Buckley, given those concerns and how we've seen this work out in other states, why not follow Representative Busey's amendment, accept it onto the bill to ensure that these voucher programs are just for people under 500% of the poverty line?
Because I don't pretend to be able to see in the hearts and minds and lives of Texans, and I believe that all Texans should have access. All parents should have that choice, and the bill is prioritized in a way that matches the families that we believe lack that access to educational choice at this time.
So you mentioned that it's capped at 20% in the underlying bill. 20% is still $200 million in this first year of the program. $200 million. Should we really be spending $200 million of Texas taxpayer money to subsidize people who are, quite frankly, well off and can afford private schools if that's what they choose?
The bill is prioritized, though, and it begins with a middle class prioritization that understands that families have different incomes and different needs. But through 80% of the program, there'll be no one in the program earning more than $160,000 a year. No family earning more than that.
I'm sorry, you said no one in the program or just 20% max?
In the first 80%.
In the first 80%,
Yeah.
Okay. So we still have 20% that can be earning any amount of money, correct?
Yeah, they're capped at 20%, the earners of 160 and above.
So up to $200 million of Texas taxpayer money could go to billionaire children and millionaire children potentially.
Or it could go to a civil service worker, and a fireman. They were earning $161,000 a year. I mean, we tend to take the argument to the extremes, and billionaire talk, it is the extreme, but there's a whole lot of ground in between the top earners, and even at that, it's capped at 20%.
Yeah. I mean, Representative Buckley, I think the concern is we have an option here to put a hard cap. And, I mean, would you, if you don't think 500% of the poverty level that Representative Busey has proposed is the right number, is there a cap you can determine that we can stick on this bill to make sure we're not using taxpayer dollars to subsidize people who are going to send their kids to private school anyways?
I believe that the prioritization system in this bill prioritizes the right families, and the cap in the fourth priority is the right policy decision.
So we just discussed how the prioritization system in Arizona has, quite frankly, not worked and has sent their funds to the highest earners. Is there a state where a similar prioritization system has worked in delivering these dollars to low-income and middle-class families?
Absolutely. If you look across the country, you'll see that that most ESA recipients are certainly not wealthy people. You know, we tend to make a discernment whether or not they're currently in private school. Where I'm from, the families I know in private school are not wealthy.
Well, where you're from, I presume none of these students are receiving vouchers because we haven't passed it yet. So I'm curious which state.
But families are making that sacrifice.
Which state has used this prioritization system and kept those dollars mostly with middle income and lower income families?
I'm not advised on that, but I'm advised that this bill will.
So we have an example of failure, but we don't have an example of success. Is that correct?
I don't know how you define failure.
I mean, I would posit that.
If you define failure by the income of a family that's participating in the ability to send their child to the school of their choice that's never had that opportunity before, or a struggling family that's currently in a private school, kids with special needs in Killeen, Texas, that are working 2 or 3 jobs to do it, that's an absolute fact. If you define that as failure, then we'll take that failure.
Well, Representative Buckley, could we limit it to those types of families then?
Absolutely not, because I don't presuppose to know what income level there is and the circumstances of families. And so this bill is prioritized in a way that will certainly match the needs of those vulnerable Texans and finally give parents an option.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions, Representative Buckley. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right.
Ms. Troxler, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Gentleman yields.
I would love to know, there's been some discussion up here, $160,000 for a family of 4, and then that all of a sudden makes a big jump to millionaires and billionaires, right? Do you know what the total combined income needed to live a secure lifestyle is in Austin, Texas for a family of 4?
No, Representative Troxler, I do not know that number.
Would you be surprised to know that according to Smart Asset Report, in 2024, the average combined income for a family of 4 to live a secure lifestyle in the city of Austin is $223,000. That's because you have $111,000 going to living expenses, $67,000 going to other expenses, and $44,000 going into savings or paying down debt in order to make ends meet. So that's quite a bit higher than $160,000. Am I right?
Yes, Representative. I believe it speaks to the fact that this bill is prioritized just right to meet the needs of Texas families across this state.
And I think would you also be surprised to know that other cities across Texas, like the city of El Paso, the city of Lubbock, the city of Laredo, the city of Corpus Christi, the city of San Antonio, the cities of, Fort Worth, Arlington, and the cities of Dallas, Plano, Irving, and Garland, just to name a few, are all over $5,000 for a family of 4 to live comfortably. Would that surprise you to know that?
That's why this bill is prioritized the way it is. It understands what it takes to have a middle-class lifestyle in Texas.
And I know that in your bill, as we've talked about repeatedly,
Gentleman's time has expired.
thank you.
Speaker members, I respectfully move to table.
The chair recognizes Mr. Busey to
With the
close on
gentleman
on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish this wasn't a move to table. I wish we were taking an up and down vote. To answer a few questions, when I said I have a wealthy friend, I meant most of my colleagues here on the House floor. When I was asked about millionaires, I think there's 650,000 millionaires in Texas. They don't all need to have a kid to fill up that 20% bucket pretty quick
gentleman
and
yield
make
for a
sure that
question?
that's not at this time, and make sure that that money is not getting to go to other needy individuals in this state. There's also, I believe, 87 billionaires. I don't know if y'all think that 1, 2, 10, 20, how many billionaires deserve this privatization voucher? I think 1 is too many, Mr. Hayes. I think 1 millionaire is too many. But let's get back to this amendment. It is 500% of the federal poverty level, $160,000 for a household of 4. That goes a long way when you talk to your constituents back home. Maybe not when we talk to each other on this House floor, but when we talk to our constituents back home, a family making $160,000 in the great state of Texas, they're doing pretty well. And we're saying up to that level, fine. Beyond that level, not acceptable with this bill. That bill would not meet the standards of the governor who said this is to help people living paycheck to paycheck. That would not meet the standards of expanding access, as our friend Chairman Frank talked about. Well, rich people already have this when he was talking to our friend Chris Turner. It would not meet that threshold that was said on social media earlier when we said we're freeing the individuals to go. Because if we let it go to those people, we're not freeing anyone. They already have that choice. So let's deal with the need with this bill. And yes, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, and thank you for the shout out earlier.
I thought it was a good post.
I'm wondering,
Ms. Hicklin, for what purpose?
excuse me, thank you. Do you yield for questions?
Yes,
Gentleman
ma'am.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you. Are you interested in calling for income caps for these millionaires and billionaires who have their children in public schools?
I would like to talk about the amendment that's before us. And the amendment that is before us is saying that we should cap to anyone making over 500% of the federal poverty level.
Should we pay
a
for
family
millionaires
of 4
and
that is
billionaires in public schools?
160,000. Public schools are in our Constitution to be provided to build this entire great state up, to make sure there's an educational foundation for all. We all pay for that. What you're asking for us to do today is to create a second system that we also have to pay for. And I do not believe that millionaires and billionaires' kids should get to take advantage of that second system. The first system, yes, I do, because
It
we
would cost
all
more
benefit.
to educate
we
millionaires
all-
and billionaires
sorry,
in our public
Representative, I would like to
schools
finish
than
answering your
ESAs.
question.
Thank you.
Members,
First, I would like to
please.
finish answering your question. We all benefit. All of Texas benefits when all of our children, from lower income, middle class, and upper class, when all of our children get a world-class public education. What I am saying is let's not give money to the rich elite to go get this second track that they can already afford. With that, Mr. Speaker, I ask everyone to vote no on tabling this amendment.
Mr. Busey sends up an amendment. Dr. Buckley moves to table the amendment. The question is on the motion to table. If you are in favor of the amendment, vote no. If you are opposed to the amendment, vote yes. A record vote has been requested. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Mr. Busey voting no. Show Mr. Tallarico voting no. Show Dr. Buckley voting aye. Show Ms. Jones voting nay. Show Mr. Lowe voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? There being 83 ayes and 60 nays, the motion to table prevails. The following amendment, the clerk will read the amendment.